This week we're making my 3-day Polish pizza dough. This makes the best pizza crusts that are crisp on the bottom, have a soft open crumb and a well developed flavour. Although this dough does take 72 hours to make, most of that time is hands off and the results really do speak for themselves. Here's how we make it. First we're making a Poolish, which is a type of high hydration pre-ferment. To do this we add 200 grams of water and 0.8 grams of dried active yeast into a mixing bowl, then stir together. Now we need to add 200 grams of double O flour into the water, then mix until just combined. To give our pizzas an airy, chewy crust, we're using a flour with a protein content of around 12.5%. I use Caputo flour for both the Polish and the dough. Once mixed, we add the Polish into an airtight container, let it sit at room temperature for an hour, then chill in the fridge for 18 to 24 hours. The Polish will double in size, so we need to make sure to use a big enough tub. I like to draw a line on the side of the tub so we can tell when it has doubled. The next day we take the Polish out of the fridge and let it sit at room temperature for 1 hour. In the meantime we add 600 grams of double O flour into the bowl of a stand mixer with 300 grams of water and 20 grams of olive oil. We mix this until just combined, then leave it to autolyse for 1 hour. This hydrates the flour and helps with gluten development. We don't want to fully mix the dough at this point, so don't worry if there's a few streaks of flour. Now we cover the bowl and let it sit at room temperature until the Polish is ready. After an hour, the Polish should have doubled in size from its original volume. If it hasn't, let it sit at room temperature until it has. You should also see a lot of bubbles on top, which is a sign of fermentation. Next we add all of the Polish into the dough, then mix on a medium speed until it's incorporated. Then we add in 20 grams of fine sea salt, then continue mixing on a medium speed until the dough passes the window pane test, which will take around 10 minutes. The window pane test is a way to check gluten development, and it's where you stretch some of the dough between your fingers. If it stretches thin enough that you can see through it, the dough is ready. If it doesn't, more mixing is needed. Then once our dough is ready, we cover the bowl, then let it sit at room temperature for 1 hour. Next we divide the dough into 5 equal pieces. Each piece should weigh around 260 grams, which is enough dough to make 12-inch pizzas with thin crusts, or 10-inch pizzas with thicker ones. A set of digital scales comes in handy here. Now we need to shape each piece of dough into a ball. To do this, we take a piece of dough, bring the edges into the middle, then use cupped hands to shape it into a ball. We repeat this process with each piece of dough, then add each one into a lightly oiled container, or a dough tray if you've got one. Now our dough needs to chill in the fridge for 36 to 48 hours, which gives it plenty of time to ferment and develop flavour. After the cold proof, you'll be able to see lots of tiny bubbles in the dough. This is a sign that it has fermented properly. But before using our pizza dough, we need to let it sit at room temperature for around 2 hours. This will relax the gluten, making it easier to stretch and open up. You can top your pizzas with whatever you like. I've got some crushed San Marzano tomatoes, some diced low moisture mozzarella, parmesan to grate on top, and some pepperoni. Now to make a pizza. First I'm going to lightly dust a work surface with flour, then tip out the dough so that it's facing the same way up that it was sat in the tub. Then I'm going to use my fingertips to press the air out from the middle of the dough around the edge to form a crust. Now I like to use the steering wheel method to stretch out my dough, which is where you hold the dough in the air and rotate it in your hands like you're turning a steering wheel. This allows gravity to stretch the dough for us. As we turn the dough, we pinch around the edge so that we form the crust properly. Next I'm going to top the dough with a light layer of the crushed tomatoes, making sure not to get any on the crust as it will burn. Then I'm going to use a microplane to grate some parmesan on top of the tomatoes, again keeping it off the crust. Then I'm going to top it with some of the diced mozzarella. And some pepperoni. Again, feel free to top your pizza with whatever you like. Now I'm going to transfer the pizza to a peel and then stretch it out to make it a bit bigger. I like my pizzas to have a thicker crust, so I made this one around 10 inches. Then if needed, we just rearrange the toppings slightly so that they cover the pizza evenly. So I've got my pizza oven preheated to around 400 degrees Celsius or 750 degrees Fahrenheit. And because the crust is a bit thicker, I've got the flame set to low. So here I'm just keeping an eye on the pizza. I'm going to turn it every 20 to 30 seconds so that the crust doesn't burn. You get such a good oven spring with this dough because it's been cold brewed for several days, and also because the stone is so hot. Which is why it's so key to properly saturate the stone with heat before cooking any pizza. So at this point the pizza is pretty much cooked, so I'm just going to keep turning it so it doesn't burn, and I'm also going to check the underneath to make sure that's cooked properly as well. The total cooking time of a pizza of this size is around 2 minutes. So it's best to cut your pizza up and serve it pretty much straight away. You can see how open the crust is, and then if you take a look underneath as well, you'll see that it's nicely coloured and that holds its shape. And that's how I make and cook my 3-day Poolish pizza dough. The full written recipe can be found on my blog saltbuttersmoke.com. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another recipe.